speaking up and speaking out sometimes it's hard. But I just think we deserve a voice. And we've been fighting for our humanity since we've been here.
Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Glam. I'm your host, Rasha Goel. I am so excited to be bringing you stories and journeys of celebrities and creatives that go beyond the glamorous world that you have seen them in. We'll be diving into how working in an industry that many are passionate about impacts who they truly are. And today I have a very special guest who she lights up the room when she walks in there, and she makes me smile and laugh all the time, and I'm also very inspired by her. Aida Rodriguez is a powerhouse and a multi-hyphenate. She's a comedian, an actress, a producer, writer, podcaster, and author. Among her many credits, she starred in her own half-an-hour special on Netflix's hit comedy series, They Ready, executive produced by Tiffany Haddish and Wanda Sykes. She also debuted her first hour-long stand-up special, Fighting Words, on Max. And in October 2023, she released her memoir, Legitimate Kid, offering an intimate look at her life, which I cannot wait to talk more about. Aida lights up both the screen and live shows while passionately advocating for representation, diversity, and humanitarian causes. Like I said earlier, she's someone who makes me smile, but someone who I'm just in awe of all the time. Aida, welcome to Beyond the Glam.
Thank you. Appreciate that lovely intro. Sometimes we forget, so we need to be reminded. So thank you.
Right? And those are just some of the amazing things you have done and accomplished. I want to jump right into this because your journey, as I've been observing it, has been both challenging and inspiring. You have experienced kidnapping as a child to overcoming a difficult marriage and homelessness. But all throughout that, you've been very resilient. You've maintained your sense of humor and you found success through all of it. So how has comedy served as a tool for healing for you?
Where I come from, the community that I come from, it's a coping mechanism, being funny, cracking jokes, playing the dozens, roasting, all of that comes from pain. And I just think that I just took it on as a healing tool. Instead of just basking in depression and sadness, I was like, let's let laughter see the way through.
Aw. But you seem to cope with it so well. You're a mother of two. You've been doing stand-up comedy since 2008. So, and when I look at you, you make things look easy, but I know it's not always that easy. So what would you say has been the most enjoyable thing about being a comedian, and what's been the hardest thing?
So I think the most enjoyable thing about being a comedian is bringing so many different people together in laughter. Just seeing people who come from different walks of life being able to enjoy just this moment together, because there's so much divisiveness in our country and in the world right now, social media. So just to see people just, being able to hear people after the shows tell me what laughing for them meant to them in that moment. There are people who have been terminally ill, people who have lost people. So it's very rewarding to see how, the things you come up with make other people happy. I would say the thing I hate about comedy the most is the politics and, the machine and the people who abuse it and mistreat it, the gatekeepers that are, disingenuous about their love for stand-up, who really do it for several other reasons that are not pure, and they kind of ruin the art. I think dealing with that is the hardest thing that I have to do with the sexism, the racism, the ageism, all of the above, and just to and all comedians experience some sort of discrimination in any way, because it's not regulated. We don't have a union. And so it's just no church in the wild. Everybody makes up their own rules. You go do one stand-up weekend and someone pays you, 25 cents, and then you go somewhere else and they pay you $2. And so there's no regulating anything, and it's just a lot of times comedy is in the wrong hands.
I had no idea about that, because I felt like when you're at a set stage in your life or in your career, that's the consistent. So it's always up and down then.
Yeah, it is up and down. And it depends on what they think is you being up. Because you see a lot of comedians who are visible and they're on YouTube, they're going viral, but a comedy club owner may not see the value in that. And so it becomes something else and it can be really gross.
But you still seem to stand tall and wither through it, man. I mean, you're traveling right now too for a bunch of live shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I stay away from it. I have a team and I let them handle it because I just know for me it's not good. So I let my manager be frustrated.
You take care of it. I'm going to show up and perform. Well,
Yeah.
so that's one of the unglamorous things. But and we talk about this often, or at least I talk to other people too, that the glamorous side of showbiz, it hides our real life moments behind the scenes. But we also have fun and unexpected moments too. So was there a fun or unexpected experience that you had maybe before you made a public appearance or a red carpet appearance where we may not have guessed what you just went through, but you appeared so polished?
I mean, I was on a red carpet when Lauren London was having an exchange with a person on the red carpet who was interviewing her. And I didn't realize what was happening. I feel I wouldn't say it was contentious, but it was maybe adversarial. And she actually checked this woman and was like, because they asked her, when are you and Nipsey Hussle going to get engaged? And she was like, "What? When are you gonna get engaged?" But the video went viral, and I'm standing right next to her, and people were just like, people kept sending it to me or adding me like on all the blogs, and it was funny because I was just oblivious to what was going on. But in the moment when I caught on, I was like, this is not my business. This is not my business. Do your interview, smile, don't react because if you react, that's gonna go viral, and then you're gonna be a part of why. And it was just like that moment. It was just I was not expecting it, and I thought it was hilarious. Now that I see it, because I'm just standing there like doom de doom de doom, you know. Um, but it was a fun moment. I got to witness someone in their most authentic voice advocate for themselves on a red carpet that was in a way that isn't normal. Like people usually just grin and bear it. And she was like, not today. And it was hilarious.
I love that because it is so tricky on the red carpet because you don't know what you're going to be asked. And then
Yeah.
you're right. It's like showing up where you can't necessarily always be authentic and you're fitting this expectation. And that's a perfect segue because your book, I just, there were so many moments, Ida, that I was reading this and I just kept thinking, my God, she is just incredible. You were so vulnerable in this book. You shared a lot of different moments that could be taken differently or not understood by people. So, how did you maintain your authenticity when writing this, especially with your public image when there's so much pressure to fit a certain expectation?
Well, I've defied that expectation my entire career. I don't ever want to follow the flock. A lot of people that are enviable to others because they're famous and super successful and rich, to me, is the ultimate downfall for me as an artist because I really love what I do. And I feel like artistry is an expression of the Most High, God, whatever you believe in. And for me, that is how God expresses God through me. And so I, when I was writing the book, I wanted to tell my story without the burden of a punchline and without a rebuttal, which is what with my editor said, writing a book is telling your side of the story without being interrupted. And that was very exciting to me. But I was thinking about how I felt throughout my life, as a young child, a young girl, and I wanted to release people from shame and guilt. A lot of the things that hold on to us in our lives are rooted in shame and guilt, and they are very big deterrents to where we want to go. And so I just sat down and said, I want to just tell my story. I want to tell it my way. I didn't go in, chronological order, which was really bothered a lot of people. They were very upset that it wasn't. I have ADHD, and the way my thoughts work are the way my thoughts work, and I wanted to honor myself when I wrote my book, and I didn't want anybody tampering with it because a lot of people, we don't think of our lives in chronological order. None of us sit down and say, hey, yeah, I mean, it started when I was 5, and then we just run down the bio. Like, that's just not how it works. There are moments in your life when you remember falling off a bike when you were 6. And then a couple of days later, you're like, man, my second marriage sucked, and it's just, that's not how it works. So I just wanted to tell these stories. I selected 20 stories. I didn't tell them all, but that meant something to me and the way my life has shaped up. And I wanted to speak to whatever that was that I was speaking to in that chapter. And I wanted to tell the truth. I wanted to tell my truth, which is not necessarily the truth, but my truth, because I feel like people really think they're always telling the truth when they give their opinions now. And it was just not true. This is the way I saw it based on my experiences, and I wanted to share those with people. And I didn't edit myself.
And so you weren't worried about what people would think or the expectations of how people had this persona of who Aida Rodriguez is?
No, I didn't care about what other people thought about me as what persona or whatever. Because I feel like that is the death of a truth artist is the imagery and the idea of celebrity. I mean, celebrity really is connected to popularity, whereas true artistry is something that has longevity and lives on.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? And I really like to be connected to that. And that was a big deal for me. But of course I was nervous because I thought I didn't want to demonize my mother. I wanted to tell the story, but I wanted to have agency over my own story and be able to tell it. But I didn't want to victimize myself and make everybody else the villain of the story, which a lot of people do. And I think that would have been more popular but I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to give my mother grace and understanding that she was too a young girl and had her own experiences, and where she was a result of all that trauma. So I thought about it, and then I was like, I'm just going to do my thing, and it'll land where it's supposed to land, and the people who need to receive it will, and those who don't won't, and they don't matter.
That is so beautiful. And you're right, because I think when I say vulnerable too, I mean you shared some very personal moments,
Mhm.
just not even from your own life, but yes, of your family members.
Yeah.
And you're right, it could be taken in a different way, but it was so well done. I do want to share something with the people who are listening or watching us, because this stood out to me in your book. Um, it was when you had booked the third season of Entre Nos on HBO at that time, and you
Mhm.
became the first woman to headline one of the installments. And you
Mhm.
write in the book, it was the first time I felt seen and validated by my community.
Mhm.
That hit me, Ida, because I know as an Indian woman what that has felt like, but I'm really curious to know on your perspective, what did that mean to you?
So it meant a lot because comedy is a very interesting space where you are often encouraged to just express one point of view so that it can resonate with the most people. So when you do late night television, they'll say, hey, the middle of the country watches this, which it kind of does a disservice to the middle of the country, as if speaking to them like there's this homogenized, wholesome group of people who only live a certain type of life, which is not true. But you're often discouraged not to, especially when you're people of color and women, they're always trying to discourage you from not leaning into that which you are, because then it makes it something else. And I don't believe that. I believe that I have a friend who's a Polish comic, and when she talks about being Polish, I don't ever think she's dumbing down or doing less comedy or it's not relatable. She's giving you a view into her Polish American life. And I don't think that it's any different for people of color, but there's this racist tinge and this pressure that's always put on comedians. They're like, you want to be mainstream. You want to be as mainstream. There's no such thing as mainstream anymore. Like there are people who have 15 million followers on social media and have 15 million people who know everything about them that I've never heard of. And you know what I mean? And then there are people that have uh, no followers and have Emmy nominations. Like it's not that world anymore. And so, being able to do that show and them saying, we see you just the way you are and we want that instead of, hey, we want you to do this. We want you to do that. We want you to. And it was a very big deal for me because um, I talk about whatever I want to talk about in stand up. And it's not, I'm not the Puerto Rican comic. I'm not the woman comic. I'm not the mother comic. I have jokes about road rage and science, and I do have jokes about my Puerto Rican mother and grandmother. And I can do whatever I want to do because that's what a real comedian does. So to be able to just say, hey, we see you just the way you are and we want you was a very big deal for me because I hadn't experienced that up until that point.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you shared that. Thank you. Because I think it is important. And I have felt growing up, Ida, like I couldn't own the Indianness of me. I think we
Mhm.
are now, fortunately, at a time, like you said, like with social media and where we are with community, where people are owning up and celebrating their culture and heritage. But no, for me, it was always that too. I had to be mainstream. So how do I still love my culture but fit myself? And I couldn't talk about all these cool Indian things. And now it's cool to be eating Indian food and wearing the bindi and all that. That's not what I grew up in. So
Yeah.
that
No,
that
no, I
statement,
understand.
yeah, and it's like fighting again for that space, fighting for that chair on the table
Yeah.
constantly. Well, and speaking of that too, I know advocacy is very, very important to you,
Mhm.
especially when it comes for Latinx representation in television and film. And I think it's so great you bring that. You're very vocal about that in your comedy shows, but I know that it stands for a bigger cause for you. So tell us a little bit about that cause, and especially when it comes to understanding Latino women.
Well, I think that people undermine the value of media. When we talk about the things that we see happening in our world, we don't realize how important media is, whether it's the George Floyd lynching or it's what's happening in the Sudan, what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Israel, what's happening all in the Congo. Like, and it's all of it is related, but media is so important to it, and not just journalism. The way people see us sometimes it really informs the way they treat us because a lot of times some people don't ever have interactions with Indian women or Afro Indigenous Puerto Rican women. They don't know what we are. And if media is always telling people that we're bad or that we're criminals or that we all speak with a heavy accent and we all work at 7-Eleven and that, all of that stuff, it just informs people. And so then you have people walking around mocking Indians saying, oh, what do you do? They do that. Or with me, it's like, where's your knife? Do you have a blade?
Oh
You're a Puerto Rican woman.
God.
And so I think it's harmful. And so, for me, advocating for diversity and a spectrum of diversity because all Indians are not the same, and I actually have Indian heritage. On my father's side, there's East Indian blood, and
Really?
yeah, my father's Hindu. My siblings all have Hindu names. Like I'm the only one who I have an
Oh,
Eastern,
wow.
but my
I
brother.
didn't even know this.
Yes, my brother's Krishna. I have a sister Chandra. I have Lakshmi, Radharani. So they all have these names, and so that my father, he's Hindu, and that's his
Wow.
faith, and so this. So to assume that I am just this one thing because that's what you see on television is how it works for some people. They have never experienced anyone like me. So I advocate for that, and I advocate for solidarity and unity amongst people of color, not just Latinos, because I think we have a collective power that we're not even aware of that can really, turn tables and make things happen. But, for me, expressing that kind of stuff, especially for women who,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it gets women get swept under the rug of all the other issues because if women have solidarity, they have power. So then it's like, oh well, the Latin woman gets paid the least, and Black women have it really bad in America, and they have it really bad all over the world, and that is undeniable. And at the same time, other women also have it really bad. Those little girls that are being castrated in other parts of the world or being mistreated or being, sexually assaulted, those
Mm.
those people matter too. And I think that, for me, speaking up and speaking out sometimes is it's hard because, people come for you. But I just think it's important for to advocate for us because we deserve a voice. And it's just we've been fighting for our humanity since we've been here.
That is so true. Have you had backlash sometimes when you have been vocal?
Oh yeah, I mean, I get people.
Yeah.
There are people because there are people who have something to say about everything,
True.
and you shouldn't be talking about this. You don't know what this is, and I just learned to ignore it because those people, that's all they do. They're really, this is not, if Michelle Obama was like, hey, I need you to stop doing this because this is not okay, then I'd be like, you know what? But then when you go look at these people, whoever they are, men, women alike, they just have nothing to do. And all they do is just sit around, being digital contrarians. And I don't care.
It's like, come up to my face and say it, right? It's so easy to sit on the computer screen, but I
Yeah.
feel like you have to be thick-skinned for
Yeah.
that too, to
Yeah.
serve because you're a public figure. So how do you deal with criticism or negativity that comes from the public or media?
So first, I separate the criticism from the negativity. Some people have constructive criticism that I think, I had someone say something about a joke and they thought that it was insensitive to the trans community. And I had a conversation with them. I brought them on my podcast. I had two trans women explain to me why the joke was problematic. And I didn't have a problem with that because they didn't try to burn me down. They didn't say, hey, cancel her, don't go to her shows. They were like, we respect you enough to have this conversation with you because we know that you're not operating from malice. And it was very important to me and it was very helpful. And I retired the joke because I wanted to be sensitive to that community, being that so many male comics have made, it made it their daily point to attack trans people. So I've had to learn to separate what works, what I can use, what I can take from, and I can pour into my cup, and then what's just solid waste, and I just don't even entertain it because I know that some people will demonize you or criticize you just to justify their jealousy. That it's not even really about what you're doing. They just don't like you and they need a valid way to express it. So
Yeah.
I've just learned to identify those kinds of things and I just push back from it. I don't even have to engage. We don't even have to participate. That's not our thing.
That's true. But I love how those individuals humanized the situation and didn't just go lashing off on social media, right? Because that seems the easy way nowadays. And actually said, let's have a human to human conversation about this and see if we can have an understanding. I love that they did that. Was there, I often feel, I shouldn't say often, but of course, anybody who's worked in this industry, we know the ups and downs, Ida. Like there's so much to it. Was there ever a point in your life where you thought, I'm done with this? And if there was, how did you move past that to keep going? Because you're obviously very, very talented. And
Every
just like
week,
every week?
every week I feel like I need to,
Really?
I'll read an article and I'm like, this person's making a TV show. They're doing that. This doesn't make any sense. And it's not hating. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, oh, you got to remember that a lot of this stuff is about relationships, about nepotism. It really isn't about art. And it kind of like taints it for me. And then I have these moments where I'm like, I don't know if I want to be in this. Is this going to affect my soul? And the reality of it is, for me, the way that I see myself through is I'll go read something that I wrote, or I'll go watch a performance, or I'll just engage in something that I've done and say, okay, we got to get back to this vibration, because this is not about that. This is about this. But I often feel discouraged in the business, and now I'm doing the artist's way, and that's been very helpful to me. It's been very healing in terms of what I'm doing artistically. But I have to continuously stimulate myself outside of the industry to remind myself that I am an artist and I'm here for that. I'm not here for that over there.
See, and I really love that you pointed that out, because I don't think that's something that people really think of often. And again, from the outside perspective, right? Like, I came to watch one of your live shows and I'm like, my gosh, she's incredible. She makes this look so easy and life is so hunky dory. And in fact, I tell you, I think I actually, we met through that women's conference that had happened. And
Yeah.
even when you were on stage that day speaking about solidarity and just women and just even about yourself, I just looked up and I said, I want to be in Ida Circle. Like, she gives
Uh,
me strength. I'm like, I need to know Ida, because this woman is incredible. Just energetically, I had felt it from you that day, and I was like, so I'm glad that you still show up every day, Ida, because I feel we need you, and especially as a woman, we
thank
need your tenacity. As women, I think we also go through our own personal things. So I have to ask you, what would you say is your greatest insecurity?
I think my greatest insecurity, and my daughter and I have this in common. She was able to put words to it. Is leaving here and not leaving my mark. I think that's my greatest insecurity, is not being able to say I did something great. And because now what is great has been blurred so much by what is popular, what is young, what is pretty, what is rich. Um, but I think my greatest insecurity is not being able to accomplish the things that I set out to do. And the trick of it has been that I've done so much, and I didn't, I, I have such a working, keep your head down, keep working immigrant mentality, that I don't acknowledge my wins, because I've always been made to feel that you shouldn't. That's boastful and that's whatever. And that's so inaccurate, because you have to remind yourselves of the wins so that you can continue to win. And for me, it's about, my insecurities have a lot to do with not being seen, not being able to do what I want to do, because I don't play the game, or because I don't pander, and I won't low common denominator myself into popularity. It makes me feel afraid that I may not get a chance to do all the art stuff that I want to do.
That's so interesting. I think the you were just making me think of my own wins. And I don't think
Mhm.
we take a minute. And you're right. I think that could be from the minority
Yeah,
growing up, the immigrant factor, that it's just like keep working. And then I think it's also defining,
yeah,
right? Like, for me, it's like, but that big win, is that big win there? Do I have that TV show on mainstream television? But what is mainstream?
yeah,
Like what we talked about, it's all of us. And I don't take time out either, Ida.
yeah.
I mean, for me, it's
Yep.
a great win to get some to schedule out of your time to be talking to you today to share your journey, and we just don't take the time for that. And so that's so interesting you bring that up. But then on that note too, what are you excited about in this stage of your life about creating then and moving past those insecurities to bring that to life for you, for your
Well,
legacy?
creating my own stuff, just being reminded, having this, you know, I would always hear the future belongs to the content creators. I would always hear, make it yourself, which always sounds easier than it is because making it yourself requires money and people and a big effort. But having the epiphany and like really sitting in the realization that I can create my own stuff and I can go straight to consumer and to really shed that need to be validated by the machine and saying, does it matter if you do a show and you put it on YouTube, if it has 10 million views? Does it matter that it's on NBC if only 2 million people are watching it? Does the NBC logo make up for the other 8 million? I think being able, and that is something that is so, I've learned from the younger generation, like this Gen Z, those younger people, they don't care. They don't watch television. They watch, media on their devices. And just being able to understand that they get it because they're not in bondage to the machine. They're not that, there are how many networks, and then you have all these people who are exercising their own issues and insecurities and saying, we'll make this show. We're not going to make this show. People who are disconnected, they have no idea what's happening in the world, making the decisions. So sitting down and realizing that I have the power to really do my own thing and creating, I have a production company, and just waking up one day realizing how many things I've produced through my production company. My production company actually owns the rights to my book because I did my deal through my company and not myself. So just being able to realize that there are some things on my roster that are going to get made, whether an executive or a network says yes, it's going to get made because I have created a way now to make my own stuff. That's really exciting. Being able to do all the stuff that they keep saying, oh, I don't get it, and watch it be successful without them is probably, and even it's not even about them because my jokes on They Ready were jokes that people told me weren't good enough or wouldn't do well. And I believe that my They Ready set has millions. I know that it has millions of views because I know someone that works there and they told me. But I was like, well, I know that I know what I'm doing. So I'm excited about the next phase of creating for me. I'm in the middle. I wrote a TV show. I'm writing a movie. And just writing other stuff. And I'm really excited about that without having to hear you need somebody else to do this, because that's what it's always been, right? Well, we
Yep.
need to we got to get this. And it's like, these people don't understand me. They don't know the world that I come from. They don't understand what I'm talking about. You're just trying to attach this person because you want to get one of your friends a check. And I don't want to do that.
No, but we grew up in that, or at least I did, right? So
I
for
do.
me growing up, it was like, I need that gatekeeper to
Yeah.
open the door. And when you were saying that, oh, I need the NBC logo, but you're right, we don't need that validation
Does not matter
anymore.
anymore. Do you really think that these like millions and millions and millions of kids care? Like, they watched Jack Reacher because they saw it on TikTok and the TikToks went viral and then they went and watched it on Amazon. So it's not, they don't care about Amazon. They watched it because that's where it was, but they saw it on TikTok. So it doesn't really, I just don't feel like it matters. I think we really have to understand that if we want to reach people, there are so many different ways to reach people, and you got to create your own path. And I am really excited about it.
I'm excited too. I'm excited to see what unfolds and some of your creations. And as someone in the public eye, Ida, again, I bring this back to the industry because you know what it's like when you've got the crowd that's following you and you've got so many people around. But how do you navigate building trust and meaningful relationships both in your personal and professional life? Because you know how the popularity contest is in this world.
Oh, I learned it. I learned it the very interesting way because whenever, when HBO came, and HBO did a very big premiere for my special, which was very unlike a comedy special premiere, which was very Hollywood. They rented out this really big space. They created an exhibit. It was like really, there was a band, there were a lot of celebrities that came. I learned earlier on the way that it works, and so I've never ever really been beholden to it. It's never anything that driven me. I only gravitate to people who I naturally like and have good energy. And sure, I've had some bad apples in my, and in my life, because that's life and nobody gets it all. But I have friends that I've had since I was a child. I have friends that I've had for 20 years. And then I have new friends that I are my people. And the thing that they all have in common is that we have this connection that is rooted and based in something that's real and grounded. It has nothing to do with material and superficial things. And you just know your people. If you pay attention and you listen and you really listen to your inside and your intuition, you know who your people are. And so I've been very mindful about those people.
Yeah, it's all about the intuition. I have to wrap here shortly, but so I'm going to ask you if you could state and complete the sentence, the real me is.
The real me is constantly growing and evolving.
I love that. And where can people find you? What are the social media handles or website? Where would you like to direct them to?
They can go to funnyaida.com, AIDA. That's my website. That's where you can find my book. You can also see my comedy tour dates that are coming up and all the stuff that I have going. My book will come out October 17th on paperback. So I'm excited about that because it's at a price point that makes it far more accessible for a lot of people who are struggling right now because of where our economy is and where things are. And I'm on Instagram at Funny Ida.
Well, thank you. And yes, I'm promoting Legitimate Kid for you as well. I
So I
mean,
love
just
that book.
it's just so inspirational, really. And when I look at you and the tenacity you have, it's just even more inspiring to me. So thank you. Ida,
Oh,
thank you for joining me
of course, my
today
pleasure.
on Beyond the Glam and really just sharing your journey. And I hope everyone who tuned in today really enjoyed our conversation. It really is about setting an intention, being inspired, being empowered by other people, and knowing that we are all human beings at the end of the day. So really
Absolutely.
take a look at people around you beyond the glam and what you see as the facade. I'm Rasha Goel. You can follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms and on social media. And until next time, have a great week. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you back here with another episode of Beyond the Glam.